So, Alan, when you're thinking about Prairie STEM and Prairie STEM's objectives and goals, how do you see NeuroTrainer fitting in and supporting?
NeuroTrainer has been one of these things where when you walk into a room and people see what you're coming in with, the first thing they say is, "What's that?" Um, and as with all of the technology that ends up being these bright, shiny objects, if you can get a student to come up and ask you something without being the one that's trying to engage them, then you know that you've got something that you can work with. Kids are so sophisticated with technology that there's very few things that can impress them. When you bring a robot in, it's not, ooh, look at the robot. It's which one is that?
That was 5 years ago.
Yeah, that was so 5 years ago. That's right. But when you walk in and there are AR, VR goggles that they can see themselves in, it is literally like looking at dogs, horses chomping at the bit. They can't wait for you to be done talking so they can try
just put
it
it on
themselves. That changes everything because you're talking about wanted engagement. It's not forced engagement. And when they get in there, especially if they're casting and their friends are watching, that's when you see those competitive natures coming out. That's when you see the gamers start, sitting up a little bit more instead of leaning back like they normally do in classrooms. They're leaning forward, playing those games and things.
Interesting. Yeah, because most of, as you know, most of our engagements when we start with schools are very often in sport. And so this is such a different type of training than a lot of athletes are used to, which is also generally to our advantage because they're used to doing skills training, physical training. And at the high school level, less so. At the college level, they start doing some vision training. They may do some hand-eye coordination training. But then the ability to put them in these immersive environments and start to, as we always say, kind of bypass their thinking brain. We'll talk about the ability to improve focus as the highest layer.
Right.
You and I have had conversations, and I'm sure we'll continue to, about the challenge of focus. That we're seeing it's less of a natural gift for students to be able to sit down and just focus on one thing for a period of time.
Right. And in the last year, that challenge is even heightened. Where you're taking away those opportunities for kids to practice that focus because now they're sitting in front of screens, remote learning, and in some cases that might be their only interaction.
I think where we catch them by surprise is very often they try to think their way through things. And we know that we create these environments in NeuroTrainer where we bypass the cerebral cortex. We literally create environments where the cerebral cortex is forced to be quiet. And so for us, there was a big bridge moment in the last few months when we started asking youth athletes, high school level, how's it going with NeuroTrainer and how do you feel? And we asked them, we're always trying to learn from our customers. And they started saying, well, I noticed if I do NeuroTrainer during study hall, I do better in math afterwards.
Wow.
And that was an aha moment for us.
Yeah. How do you feel that aha moment is going to affect academics?
So what we're looking to do is to use athletics as a way of connecting. We always talk about meeting people where they are. It's intuitive for people to be able to say, okay, I can see how this is going to help me. And then this year in Omaha, we have some schools that are starting to branch out and they're saying, okay, we think this is going to help our students overall with their ability to focus their attention, their ability to master their minds. So what we expect to see is an amplification of what we've heard from some of those students. So we know in a couple of the high schools this year, we're going to have students who are going to be using NeuroTrainer during study hall. And so we're going to be looking to see from students, from teachers, and from parents, what impact does that have? Do they notice in the class right afterwards? Oh, I can really notice the days that Alan had study hall before English and the days that he didn't. And in the same way, and I expect too, in the same way that we recently at Gretna Elite, when we ran this case study with their soccer team, their semi-pro soccer team, we had athletes tell us, I could tell the difference between athletes who had used NeuroTrainer before coming out on the field and those who didn't. Because those who came out on the field and used NeuroTrainer were already settled down and ready to go to work. And those who hadn't were still very scattered, and it took them a while before they really got into practice or got into the game.